Okay, untuk interval estimation, okay, kita ada interval estimation for single mean, interval estimation for two means, independent and dependent. So, kita tengok dulu interval estimation for single mean. Interval estimation for single mean, okay, ada beberapa situation. So, you need to identify which situation untuk each question. So, for interval estimation for mean, you need to check the variance, whether the population variance is unknown or the population variance is known. If the population variance is unknown, you have to check the sample size. Okay, so if the sample size is less than 30, okay, then kita pakai T distribution table with alpha over 2, degree of freedom, and -1. If the population variance is unknown but the sample size is large, which is 30 or more, you have to find your critical values from your normal distribution table. Now, if you have a population with known population variance, so regardless of the sample size, find your critical values from your standard normal table. So this one sama dengan table yang saya tunjuk tadi lah. Alright, so this one is standard normal table if the population is large or the population variance is known. So this is the alpha value and this is your critical values. Now, if you notice dekat sini dalam table ni, alpha yang dia bagi adalah one tail. Maksudnya, you ada satu normal curve and dia bagi you one-sided. Tapi apabila kita buat interval estimation, okay, kita nak two-sided range between here to here. So that's why kalau awak perasan dalam formula tadi, kita cari Z alpha over 2. Kita divide by 2 sebab apa? Kita ada two tail, this side and this side. Right? And for a small sample, kita guna T distribution table and bezanya dalam T distribution table ada this one. Ini apa? Degree of freedom, which is in this case n-1. Okay, for single mean, your degree of freedom is n-1. Let's look at example 1. So the amount spent for groceries in RM for 25 housewives were taken randomly based on the information given, and answer the following questions. So you were given amount spent for groceries, their mean and standard deviation. So the question asks you to construct a 95% confidence interval. Now, to construct a 95% confidence interval, you need to identify a few situations. So first of all, you need to identify whether the question gives you the population variance or not. Alright, so in this case, the question tak bagi awak population variance. So in this case, the variance is unknown. Apabila variance unknown, you kena tengok pula adakah soalan ini bagi awak small sample or large sample. So in this case, your sample N sama dengan 25, which is less than 30. So kalau N less than 30, small sample. Kalau small sample, nanti kena refer T distribution table. So, kita tengok daripada soalan, dia bagi awak N sama dengan 25, mean dia daripada table 210.35 and standard deviation 11.44. Thus, to construct a 95% CI for the amount spent on groceries by housewife, kita pakai this equation. Okay, kita tak ada mu, so kita estimate guna X bar. Kita tak ada sigma, kita estimate guna S. So that's why X bar plus minus T alpha per 2. Kenapa pakai T? Population variance is unknown and the sample size is small. Alpha over 2 with degree of freedom n minus 1 darab dengan your standard error. Standard error adalah standard deviation bahagi dengan square root of n. So given mean sama dengan 210.35, dia suruh awak construct 95% CI. Thus alpha sama dengan 0.05. Macam dapat 0.05? 100 tolak 1 tolak 0.95 sebab 95%. Okay, and disebabkan kita pakai two tail, so T adalah alpha per 2, degree of freedom adalah n tolak 1 darab dengan your standard error 11.44 bahagi dengan punca kuasa 25. So now mana dapat 2.064? Because the population is variance is unknown and the sample size is small, refer to T distribution table, go to alpha 0.05, degree of freedom V sama dengan 24. So thus your critical value adalah 2.064. Substitute in the equation. Thus, your 95% CI adalah between 205.6275 to 215.0724. You boleh buat dalam bracket or you boleh buat dalam inequalities macam ni. And don't forget to interpret your answer. So, dia suruh construct 95% CI. Thus, we are 95% confident that the mean amount spent on groceries by housewife is between RM205.63 and RM215.07. So this is an example for single mean, population variance unknown, and small sample. Now let's look at another example. A study was done to investigate the average weight in kilogram of newborn babies in a certain hospital is different from 3.2 kilograms. 50 babies were selected at random and the result obtained are as follow. So show that the standard error mean is 0.1582 and construct a 99% confidence interval for the mean weight of babies. So now from the question, the variance is unknown. Okay, the population variance sigma squared. Okay, yang dia bagi kat sini standard deviation ni, ini adalah sample standard deviation. But the population variance is unknown, or the population standard deviation also is unknown. So when the population variance is unknown, kena tengok the sample size. So here your sample size is 50, large sample. If large sample, refer Z table ataupun standard normal distribution table. So kita tengok untuk soalan A, show that the standard error. Apa itu standard error? Standard error adalah sigma over Z n. Kita estimate sigma menggunakan S over Z n, which is in this case 1.1187 bagi dengan punca kuasa 50. You patut dapat 0.1582. Okay, here. Standard error. Alright. So, the standard error, okay, dapat 0.1582 is shown. 99% confidence interval for the mean weight of babies. Since the population is large, even though the population variance is since the sample size is large, even though the population variance is unknown, kita gunakan formula ini. X bar plus minus Z alpha per 2 multiply with your standard error. So Z alpha per 2. Alpha per 2, okay, sama dengan 1 tolak 0.99. Your CI bahagi dengan 2. So that's why dapat 0.005. So macam mana nak tengok Z 0.005? You pergi kepada standard normal table, go to alpha 0.005. So alpha 0.05 is here. So the critical value adalah 2.5758. Substitute dalam equation. Untuk standard error this one, S over cert N, awak boleh terus ambil standard error daripada SPSS output. Tak perlu lagi kira. Okay, so you dapat jawapan dalam interval. So the interpretation will be, we are 99% confident that the mean of baby weight is between 2.8639 kilograms and 3.6789 kilogram. So please make sure that before you nak buat, tengok dulu population variance is known or unknown, and then identify whether the sample size is large or small. Alright? Okay. This is another example. Alright? So, the table below shows the summary statistics for the amount of money in RM, okay, spent by 14 customers at a supermarket. And then dia bagi awak one sample statistics with N sama dengan 14. Sample mean 104.4636. Sample standard deviation 16.71289, and the standard error is 4.46671. Show that the standard error adalah this one and construct a 95% confidence interval. So macam mana nak buat? Okay, sebelum tu population variance is unknown. Sample size 14, small. Kalau small, pakai T distribution table. Dia suruh show that the standard error adalah sigma over cert N. Kita tak ada sigma, kita estimate guna S over cert N. So A, standard error sama dengan S over cert N, which is 16.71289 bahagi dengan 14. So 4.46671 shown. Okay, untuk B, dia minta awak construct a 95% CI. So tadi dah bagi tahu unknown, N sama dengan 14, small. So 95% CI adalah mean plus minus T alpha per 2 degree of freedom darab dengan your standard error. So dia bagi min 104.4636 tambah dengan T alpha per 2. So T alpha per 2 disebabkan awak buat 95% CI, so 0.05 bahagi 2. Degree of freedom adalah 14 tolak 1. So pergi dekat table T distribution, cari nilai alpha 0.025, degree of freedom 13, you patut dapat your critical value bersamaan dengan 2.160. So substitute masuk 2.160 darab dengan your standard error. Tak perlu kira lagi sekali sebab dalam statistical dalam SPSS output dia dah bagi tahu your standard error adalah 4.446671. So substitute masuk saja, you akan dapat your 95% CI. Dan lepas tu don't forget to interpret. So saya rasa you boleh cuba sendirilah. Alright. Same goes to this another question. Okay, untuk this one, staff training is a very essential part of human resource management to become tremendous significance in the travel industry. Therefore, a study was done by Minister of Tourism and Culture to investigate whether the cost spent by travel agency for annual staff training is greater than 5,000. So the result shown as follow. Dia bagi you the variable is the cost with a sample of 15, mean and standard deviation. So here you ada single mean, dia suruh cari standard error and 95% CI. Variance unknown sebab dalam soalan tak ada mention pasal population variance or standard deviation. The sample size is 15, small. Kalau small, tengok T distribution table. So soalan dia sama saja sebenarnya. Untuk cari standard error, kita estimate guna S bahagi dengan set N. Untuk cari 95% CI, X bar plus minus T 0.05 over 2 with degree of freedom 15 minus 1 darab dengan your SE. Alright, so boleh cuba buat sendirilah untuk soalan ni. Okay, so apa yang saya boleh summarize? Okay, untuk cari interval estimates. Okay, untuk cari interval estimates for single mean. Okay, pertama sekali check whether the population variance or population standard deviation sama atau diberi atau tidak. Okay, tak kisahlah variance atau standard deviation. Sebab apa? Kalau sigma kuasa 2, kalau variance sigma squared, kalau standard deviation sigma. So benda ni sebenarnya kuasa 2 atau punca kuasa 2, tak kisah. So tengok sama ada population standard deviation ataupun population variance known or unknown. If the variance or standard deviation for the population is known, straight away use Z alpha over 2. Okay, but if the population variance or standard deviation is unknown, please check whether the sample size is large or small. If the population is 30 and above, which is large, use Z. If no, use T alpha over 2. Alright, so I guess that's all for interval estimation for single mean. For interval estimation, untuk the difference between two population mean. Okay, the difference between two population mean. Kita tengok macam mana nak buat. two samples, kita ada two different situation. So you may have two independent sample or you may have two dependent sample. So apa beza dia? For two independent sample drawn from two different population. You have dua sampel dan dua sampel ini setiap satunya daripada population yang berbeza. Yang kedua, the element from both sample have no relationship. Okay? Contoh, suppose we want to estimate the difference between the mean salary of all male and all female executive. To do so, we draw two samples, one from the population of male and the other one from the population of female. You ada dua population yang berbeza. Satu population male, satu population female. Awak draw one sample from male, another sample from female. So you have two different sample from two different population. So these two sample are independent because they are drawn from two different populations and the sample have no effect on each other. So berbeza dengan dependent sample, the sample is drawn from two population but the two samples are related. Okay, for example, suppose we want to estimate the difference between the mean weight of all participants before and after a weight loss program. So to accomplish this, suppose we take a sample of 40 participants and measure their weight before and after the completion of the program. Note that these two samples include the same 40 participants. This is an example of two dependent sample. So such sample are also called paired or match sample. Also called paired or match sample. Now dekat sini dia kata, even though dia draw the sample two times, okay, but dia sebenarnya adalah sample yang related. Kerana apa? Satu sample dia select sebelum participant tu join the program. Bila mereka semua ni dah habis join the program, dia sample lagi sekali orang yang sama. So itu dinamakan dependent ataupun paired sample test. So untuk independent sample, mu1 minus mu2, independent. Okay, so kita kena tengok the situation sama macam sebelum-sebelum ni. Alright, so when you have a question asking you to construct interval estimation for two independent sample, tengok whether the population variance or standard deviation is known or unknown. If it is unknown, then you kena tengok sama ada dia ada equal variance or not equal variance. Okay, if the population variance is unknown, memang pakai T distribution. Tetapi dia punya standard error dia berbeza ni. Kalau you assume ataupun dia equal variance, then you kena cari pool standard deviation. This one. Pool standard deviation. With degree of freedom N1, sample size yang untuk group pertama, tambah dengan sample size group yang kedua, di minus dengan 2. But if not equal variance, then dia punya degree of freedom is a bit tedious lah nak cari. Okay, tapi kadang-kadang atau most of the time sebenarnya degree of freedom ini diberi dalam your SPSS output. Okay, but if you were given the population variance or standard deviation, okay, so you pakai Z table. Okay, so kita tengok contoh. Okay, ni tadi kita dah tengok dah. Okay, statistical table sama saja. So kita tengok example. The average starting salaries for 2007 universities graduate with economics and business major were 40,906 and 38,188 respectively. Suppose that these average were based on random sample of 700 economic major and 1,000 business major graduates. It is known that the population standard deviation of the starting salaries of 2007 university graduate with economic and business major is 5,600 and 5,900. Calculate the point estimate for the difference and construct 98% confidence interval. So apa yang you perlu identify di sini adalah this one is your sample mean. This one is your sample mean. And pada masa yang sama, dia bagi sample size. Okay. Untuk economy, 700. Untuk business, 1,000. And dia kata juga, the population standard deviation is 5,600 and 5,900. So in this case, the population standard deviation is known. So tengok balik equation, refer to equation ataupun formula untuk population variance is known. Okay, so to calculate the point estimate, okay, simply ambil x bar minus x bar 1 minus x bar 2. Okay, sebab apa tadi di awal-awal tadi saya kata untuk estimate population mean kita estimate pakai x bar. Untuk estimate standard deviation kita estimate pakai s. So dia suruh cari point estimate for the difference between two population. This one. Tapi kita tak ada population mean, kita tak ada population mean untuk dua-dua ni. So kita estimate guna x bar 1 minus x bar 2 dalam soalan dia dah bagi. So dapat 2.718 point estimate. And then the second question, dia suruh awak cari 98% confidence interval for the difference between the two population. So tadi saya bagi tahu population variance is known. So refer formula yang pakai standard normal table. Since awak kata 98% CI, so your alpha adalah so your alpha will be 0.02 divided by 2, 0.01. Okay, sebab 98%. So that's why dekat sini, okay, ini tadi adalah mean difference x bar 1 minus x bar 2 z alpha over 2. Okay, and this is your standard error. Okay, so sebab awak diberi standard deviation untuk both population, so kita pakailah nilai dia. Alright, so macam mana nak tengok table Z 0.01? Pergi dekat standard normal table, cari alpha 0.01, which is this one. So this is your critical value. nak interpret sama juga, we are 98% confidence that the difference between the two population mean is between 2061 to 3374. Next example. A tax collector wishes to see if the mean values of the tax-exempted properties in millions of RM are different for two cities. The SPSS output for the group statistics is given in Table 6, while the independent sample test is displayed in Table 7. State 95% confidence interval for the difference between the two population average if equal variance assumed. So the population variance and all the standard deviation is unknown. So kalau unknown, tengok assume equal ke not equal. In this case, they assume equal variance. So tengok dekat sini, this is your sample size. Ni untuk NCTA, sample size untuk CTB. This is the mean, this is the standard deviation, and this is the standard error. Now, if you tengok dekat sini, ada teks untuk equal variance assume, equal variance not assume. Since kita dalam soalan dia kata equal variance assume, kita tengok this row sahaja. Okay, so dia bagi dekat sini mean difference. Mana dia dapat negatif 18.188. Okay, so daripada sini, ini sebenarnya adalah mean difference. Mean untuk CTA 24.75, mean CTB 42.94. So, awak nak tahu CTA tolak CTB ke CTB tolak CTA? Sebab ni negatif, dan dia buat X bar untuk A minus X bar untuk B. And this is the standard error. Kalau dia suruh kira, dia suruh tunjukkan untuk supaya awak dia suruh awak tunjukkan macam mana nak dapat standard error, you kena kira lah pakai formula yang diberilah. Alright, kalau tak, awak boleh simply ambil daripada SPSS output. And sebenarnya dalam ni juga dah bagi awak punya 95% CI. Ini 95. Okay, kalau soalan suruh cari 95, sebenarnya itulah dia. Tapi kadang-kadang soalan suruh show the calculation, show that. So you kena tunjuk juga cara pengiraan. Okay, dan untuk standard error ni adalah pool standard deviation darab dengan okay. So formula untuk pool standard deviation juga awak boleh refer slide sebelum ni. Okay, so kita tengok sikit lah macam nak jawab. Okay, so here. Okay, sebenarnya macam saya tunjukkan sebelum ni, most of the thing yang diperlukan dalam awak punya formula sebenarnya dah ada dalam awak punya SPSS output. Right, so kita tengok sedikit lah. Okay, saya ulang balik tadi. Okay, degree of freedom. Ini saya terlupa cakap macam mana dia dapat 30. Degree of freedom adalah N1 plus N2 minus 2. Okay, lepas tu okay, macam mana dia dapat standard error? Okay, this is the formula for standard error. Tapi awak kena cari dulu pool standard deviation, which is this one. So, kalau you multiply 54.616 dengan cert 1 over n squared, n1 plus 1 over n2, awak patut dapat 19.310. Kalau soalan tidak suruh awak buktikan standard error tu sama dengan 19.31, tak perlu show your calculation semua, terus ambil saja nilai. So sebenarnya semua ni okay, dah ada dalam tu. X bar 1 minus X bar 2 adalah your mean difference, negatif 18.188 plus minus. Okay, yang ini kena tengok table. T alpha over 2 degree of freedom 30. Okay, alamak, ni kena tengok table. Saya tak terlupa nilai dia berapa. Darab terus dengan standard error 19.310. Alright, so this is how untuk cari 95% confidence interval for your two independent mean. Okay, so disebabkan dia pun bagi 95% confidence interval, awak juga disuruh cari 95% confidence interval, awak boleh terus ambil saja nilai ni. Okay, tapi kalau dia suruh cari 99% or 98%, awak kena kira barulah. Okay, so this is another example. A support group for lung cancer patients conducted a study to find out whether there is a significant difference in the average number of cigarettes smoked per day for patients who have been hospitalized for lung-related problem compared to those who have not been hospitalized. A sample of 107 patients was surveyed, and the following table shows the result of the students. So determine the 95% confident interval for the mean difference in the average number of cigarettes smoked per day between the two groups of patients if equal variance is assumed. So here dia bagi awak this one, sample size untuk no, sample size untuk yes, mean, standard deviation and standard error. And standard error ini standard error untuk no, this one satu lagi untuk yes. And dia tak bagi standard error for both. So dalam ni kita perasan yang the population variance is unknown, but dia suruh assume equal variance. So okay, so this is how. If equal variance is assumed, kena cari pool standard deviation. This is the pool standard deviation. And then, okay, so dia cari pool standard deviation, dapat 8.024. Darabkan dengan this one, you dapat your standard error. T alpha degree of freedom minus 2. So dekat sini, okay, kenapa dapat alpha 0.25? Sebab dia suruh buat 95%. Kenapa dapat 105? Degree of freedom sama dengan N1 plus N2 minus 2. Okay, so that's why dia dapat 105. Okay, now untuk alpha 0.025, which is this one. Okay, degree of freedom 1/5 ini tak ada. Yang ada 60 dengan 120. Okay, so for value of critical values, by referring to table 7, since the degree of freedom is 105, is not in the table, so we take the nearest degree of freedom B4. Cari yang paling hampir, tetapi mesti tidak lebih daripada 105. Okay, cari yang paling hampir tetapi sebelum. Maksud saya, kalaulah awak ada degree of freedom 119 contohnya, dalam table ada 60 dengan 120. Tetap pilih 60. Okay, but kadang-kadang ada buku dia punya pendekatan dia berbeza, tapi in our syllabus kita ikut macam ni. Okay, ambil nearest yang sebelum. Alright, jangan lebih daripada apa yang sepatutnya. Alright, so ini exercise exercise saya rasa you boleh cuba buat. Kalau tak faham nanti, bolehlah tanya saya. Okay, so sekarang kita nak tengok pula dependent sample. Okay, two dependent sample, right? Ataupun paired sample. Okay, untuk dependent sample, okay, kita pakai D bar. D bar ni apa? The difference between two mean. Okay, depends on the questions lah. Okay, x1 minus x2 ataupun x bar 1, x bar 2 minus x bar 1. Depends on the question. Okay, kita pakai T distribution table. But the degree of freedom adalah n minus 1 sahaja. Standard error sama macam sebelum ni. Okay, ni contoh. 9 experts rated 2 brand of coffee, brand A and brand B. In a testing experiment, a rating on a 7-point Likert scale is given for each of the 4 characteristics: taste, aroma, richness, and acidity. So the rating, okay, will then sum overall all 4 characteristics, and table 4 and 5 shows the result of the analysis. So dekat sini kalau awak perasan dia tulis paired sample, maksudnya dependent sample. Okay, dia bagi brand A dengan brand B. Okay, lepas tu dia bagi mean dia, standard deviation, and then dia tulis kat sini. Okay, ni awak kena take note. Brand A tolak brand B. Alright, dia boleh je nak buat brand B tolak brand A. So depends on the question. Okay, that's why dia dapat negative 1.56. Macam mana dia dapat 1.56? Sebab dia buat brand A tolak brand B, so dia kena buat x bar A tolak x bar B, which is 24 tolak 25.56. That's why dia dapat negative 1.56. So this is the standard error. Okay, ni standard error, boleh terus ambil. And kalau ditanya 95% CI, this is the interval, tapi dalam soalan diminta 90% CI. The degree of freedom dapat 8. Macam dapat 8? Degree of freedom untuk paired sample adalah n-1. So disebabkan dia daripada population yang sama, orang yang sama, so 9 tolak 1. That's why dia dapat 8. Okay, so this is how to solve the question. Since dia minta 90%, so that's why alpha awak 0.05. Okay, sebab apa? 90% alpha sama dengan 0.1 bahagi 2. Alright. So standard error, okay, ini tadi standard error daripada table 0.47. So you substitute masuk sahaja. Okay, mana dapat 1.86 ni daripada T distribution table. Awak pergi ke alpha 0.05, degree of freedom 8, nanti dapat 1.86. Alright, so this is for paired sample lah. Okay, untuk exercise ni, you all boleh cuba sendiri. Cuma saya explain a few things lah. Okay, dia kata, an archery equipment manufacturer has developed a new arrow release. The manufacturer wants to know if it performs better than the old arrow release. So 50 archers of varying ability are selected and their average score with both type of release are measured. And the computer output of the scores is given below. So kenapa paired? Kenapa dependent? Sebab archers yang sama, dia try dua-dua. Dia try the old one and then dia try the new one. So orang yang sama. So dekat sini your degree of freedom adalah n tolak 1, which is 50 minus 1. And then tolong tengok betul-betul dekat sini dia buat old minus new atau new minus old. Alright, standard error, and dia bagi 95% confidence interval. So this is your standard error. Now dia tak bagi mean difference, tapi macam nak cari mean difference? Disebabkan dia kata new minus old, awak buat x bar new minus x bar old. Okay, your D bar adalah x bar new minus x bar old, which is 129.42 tolak 129.70. So degree of freedom dapat 49. Okay, so cuba buat. Okay, pakai formula. Okay, dia suruh calculate berapa persen ni. Alamak, dah tertindih lah. So tak apalah, you try buat nanti. Cuba buat 95% CI tu, tengok sama tak jawapan dengan yang ni. Okay, this is the second exercise. Okay, saya pun nak awak cuba buat sendiri juga. Cuma here again, I'm going to bagi tahu you all beberapa perkara penting. So a group of HM420 students are selected from the population in investigating whether a statistics workshop program improve 404 test score or not. In order to test whether this workshop improves student test score, their test score before and after attending the workshop were recorded. So student yang sama ambil markah sebelum, ambil markah selepas. PET sample dependent. Okay, so daripada sini boleh tengok degree of freedom sama dengan 20 tolak 1, 19. Dekat sini juga dia ada bagi degree of freedom. Okay, dia bagi mean. Dia kata different dia adalah test 1 minus test 2. So macam mana dia dapat negatif 4 ni? Awak kena buat test 1 minus test 2, which is test 1 66.48 minus 70.62. This is your standard error. Okay, so untuk last example ni, okay, exercise ni nanti awak cuba juga. Tapi again, I'm going to emphasize a few things here. Dia kata Indah Fly Company organize a training program to boost the morale of its employees. To measure the effectiveness of the training program, the company selected a random of 7 employees and obtained their training scores. The objective was to decide whether the training should be continued in the future. So the data was analyzed using SPSS. Now here, dia kata before training minus after training, dia dapat negatif 9.14. This is the standard deviation. Standard error tak diberi. Degree of freedom 6. Macam mana dapat 6? Degree of freedom adalah n minus 1. Dia kata 7 orang. So 7 tolak 1 dapat 6. Compute the value of x. Apa x? X itu adalah standard error. Standard error dia apa? SD minus cert n. Standard deviation awak berapa? 5.757 bahagi punca kuasa 7. You dapat your x. Right? So cuba buat. Kalau tak faham nanti boleh tanya. So I guess that's all for chapter 3 estimation. Thank you everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. If you have anything to ask, please do not hesitate to text me, or maybe you can ask in the group, and I will try my best to answer your questions. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.